All right, what is up, guys? Today, I'm gonna be letting you in on a little industry secret, if you will, okay? Now, there's this thing called frame interpolation. And basically what it is that you use... Hold on. Wait a second. All right, we should be good. We should be good. I was just making sure no one was watching or listening because the last time I tried to do this, the stop motion police, hashtag stop mo popo, let's make it trend, bugged me. And so I'm just a little bit paranoid, but I checked everything, checked all the corners, all the windows, whatever, we should be good. As I was saying, frame interpolation is when you use robot brains to make your videos look smoother. What? They don't call it robot brains? But then what do they call it? Artificial what? Artificial intelligence? That sounds so complicated. Can't I just say robot brains? All right. You signed the contract. You gotta stick to the script. All that. Okay. All right. Cool. Artificial. Finally, let me say it. You use artificial intelligence to make your videos look smoother, increasing the frame rate. Okay. Now, I'm going to be slightly more serious for just a brief amount of time because I do think there probably already is or will be a growing divide amongst stop motion animators and maybe other animators too, or video producers in general, between those who think it's okay to use artificial intelligence to make your videos look better and those who think it should be like frowned upon and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to give my take on it. If you want to skip this because you really couldn't care less what I think, then I'll put like a timestamp or whatever so you could like skip ahead to the actual tutorial of how to use this software. But if you want to hear my take on it, then continue watching. For me, stop motion animation as a hobby is my favorite hobby, like hands down. There's no competition. But my favorite part about stop motion is not the actual like photography or taking pictures of the figures and stuff. My favorite part is the actual editing, like removing the green screen, adding a background, adding the voices, adding the sound effects. That's my favorite. I love that part so much. That's my favorite part. So I usually work manually with stop motion at 12 frames per second. And for those who don't know what that means, that basically means that in the videos that I make before I get the final product, every second of footage has 12 images. It displays 12 images, right? So naturally speaking, if you have a video with a higher frame rate, then you should in theory have a smoother looking animation. Like for example, right? Let's say you do a punch like this, right? With like only 12 frames per second. If you do it with 60 frames per second, you're gonna see more movement and it's gonna look smoother, but it won't like slow it down because the frame rate thing or whatever, right? Okay. That's just a very bad explanation. And what I've been doing recently is working at 12 frames per second and then using a program or software called Flowframes to increase the frame rate of the videos to 60 frames per second. And when I first saw the result of this thing, I was blown away. I literally was like, what? I mean, I'm not even exaggerating. I was like, what? And I was like, dude, I have to use this. I can't possibly see this and not keep using it. It made my stop motion look so much better. I was mind blown. The figures looked like they were living, breathing beings, right? And I was like, dude, I gotta use this. So for me personally, using Flowframes, it helps a lot because I don't want to sit there filming 60 pictures for just 1 second of footage. Like to me, that's just slave labor. Like stop motion, I'd probably start to hate doing stop motion if I had to do that much. Like one time I actually did a video that was like, I think 30 frames per second is what I was working at. And I was like, nah, bruh, that's just way too much. I forced myself to continue the project and I end up not doing it anyways. Okay. So I usually just work at 12 frames per second. I think the most I would do manually is 15 frames, but that's it. I don't think I can handle more than that. It would just be too much stress. And I think managing your stress levels and your hobby not becoming like torture is also very important. So this is how I like to work. 12 frames per second manually, upscale it with Flowframes. And so today I'm going to be showing you how I do that, okay? And for an example, I'm going to be using like a brief scene from episode 1 of my upcoming series called God's Last King to show you the before and after, how it looks at 12 frames per second. And then you will see the beautiful beauty of how it looks at 60 frames per second. And hopefully you'll be just as amazed as, I can't even talk. I'm so excited. You'll be just as amazed as I was and think it's super cool. And you will know how to do this with your videos too. So without further ado, let's go. All right, guys. So the first thing you want to do is go to this page here. I'll leave the link in the description, of course. This is where you can download Flowframes. It is made by a guy called Noomcrad. The free version is currently 1.36.0. If you add, like, go to his Patreon and sign up and stuff, I believe the newest version is probably like 1.40. I actually joined his Patreon for a brief period of time and then canceled my Patreon because the 1.4 version did not work for me. It did not actually export my files. I was getting errors saying like can't interpolate or whatever. So I stopped using it. I sent him a message. He hasn't said anything yet, but maybe he's a busy guy. He'll get back to me at some point. So I kept using the 1.36 because this is the only one that was actually able to export my videos, right? Now, let's click right here to download now. And this will pop up saying like, you know, the tool is free, but the developer accepts your support by letting you pay what you think is fair for the tool. You can pay whatever you want or don't pay anything at all. That's totally up to you. I'm just doing a tutorial, so I'll click no thanks, just take me to the downloads. And I think now you can click download again. Yeah, okay. And it will download in probably your downloads folder, the Flowframes installer. Once you find that in your downloads folder or whatever, double click it and stuff, follow the instructions to install it. And then we'll move on to, oh, my bad. Actually, you know what? I should tell you about something. Hold on. So when you go to download Flowframes, right? When you double click the installer, this thing will probably pop up if you're using Windows like I am. You just want to click more info and then click run anyway. Okay. And that will actually install the program. You'll start the, installer, follow the instructions, blah, 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 install it on your computer. And then now we'll go to the next step. Okay. All right. When you open Flowframes, this is what you will see. Okay. To actually interpolate your video, you want to click this tab here. And now I'm just going to show you my settings real quick before we get into the actual rendering process. These are my settings here. The default settings, I found that they were not giving me the perfect output that I wanted. I found a video on YouTube talking about the best settings to have and all that stuff. And I mostly followed that, but I also made some other adjustments myself because there's some things that I noticed I should change to get the output I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to show you what my settings are, and anyone who wants to copy them or, take suggestions from them can just pause the video and stuff to adjust your own settings on your Flowframes. Okay, so I'm going to click, you can see my settings right here, of course, and then click settings over here. We'll show you, these are my settings for this part. If I click down here, these are my settings for this tab, for this tab, this tab, this tab, this tab, and this tab. Now I do want to talk specifically about some stuff here. Let me see. So right here where it says fix scene changes cuts, right? Now this number is by default, at least on mine, it was set to 0.20. And if you decrease the sensitivity, I think the lowest you can go is 0.05, which is what I have. Basically, it helps the AI to more accurately detect when you have a scene change. For example, if you have a video of a tree by a river, and then you cut to a guy jogging in New York or something, you want the AI to realize that these are two different scenes that shouldn't be blended together. You should have a hard cut, right? So I put that down as low as possible to make sure the AI was definitely detecting when I had those kinds of changes. And this other setting here says scene change fix mode, right? Now you can have here, it says fancy, which is blend to next scene. And I really don't even understand the purpose of this. I guess some people may like it, but basically what it does, right, is let's say you have let's use the same example as before. Let's say you have a video of a tree by a river, and then you cut to a video of a man jogging in New York or something. What this program will do, if you choose fancy blend or whatever, is it will basically warp and transform the image of the tree to make it transition into the man jogging. And I'll probably put an example on the screen of what I'm talking about. It looks very weird and bizarre, and I don't know why anyone would want to use that feature, but maybe someone does. So I actually went ahead and changed that to basic. And what basic does is that it literally gives you a hard cut. Okay, if you have a hard cut in your video, it will give you a hard cut instead of giving you that weird warping, distorting looking mess. So I changed that as well. And once I exported, because originally when I had the fancy blend thing on, because I didn't even know about adjusting settings, and I just, used the default settings, and I noticed that all my videos exported and stuff with this weird blendy thing going on. And what I would have to do is manually fix them after exporting the video in Premiere or whatever, like fix the frames and add images to make the transition a solid cut and all that kind of stuff. But once I changed this stuff to basic instead of that fancy blend mess, it actually came out perfectly. I didn't have to manually fix anything after exporting. Okay, so those are my settings here. And if you want to go back to default, I would assume you click this, right? But I don't want default, so I'm gonna X out of there. And to actually interpolate your video, let's go to that now. I'd leave this alone, whatever it has by default. I just don't even touch that. You want to go here and click browse video, and you want to find the video that you want to interpolate. So let's click it, press open, and you'll see it pop up and stuff, right? And now you want to adjust basically how many frames do you want this thing to have. So the video that I have there right now is 12 frames per second, and I want to multiply that by 5 to get 60 frames per second. Okay, so I'm going to click the times 5 there. Normal speed, you could do slow motion too and stuff like that, but I've never tried those things, nor do I need to at the moment. So normal speed, and then you just click interpolate and let it do its thing. Now this is going to take quite a long time, and I mean, like, it could take several hours. Okay, like 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on how long your video is. This is not a very fast process. However, it is superbly faster than some other AI interpolation tools I've seen. So for example, there's one called FrameGUI, which I tried, and FrameGUI was like probably literally 10 times slower than Flowframes was. It was like 9 hours or something, I think, estimated time. It was just extremely slow. I don't know if it actually said the estimated time, but it was so much slower that I didn't see it as a feasible thing to use in the future, right? So I decided not to use that program any longer. I haven't tried others, but I've heard there's one called Dane. So there's Dane, Flowframes, FrameGUI, and I'm not sure of the names of any others, but I haven't tried Dane. I haven't felt the need to, because I feel like Flowframes, I'm pretty happy with it overall. So I don't really need to go experiment with Dane. And I have already heard reports that Flowframes is faster than Dane anyways. So I'm all set. So just let this, run through the whatever, I don't know, the fields and the tulips, and do its thing. And when it's done, you can actually choose what your computer will do when it's finished, which would be like over here, when done, do nothing, or you could set it to like close the app, sleep, hibernate, shut down. I usually just have it to do nothing because my computer needs to be plugged in and plugged off and all that stuff anyway, so I don't need to. I can't basically leave this running all night and have the laptop plugged in for like 8 hours just draining electricity. So I usually just say do nothing, and I kind of watch it usually during the day and let it, interpolate or whatever. So just let it do its thing. And you can open this preview in a different window, but I've heard that kind of slows down the process, so you don't really want to do that. Okay, but yeah, so let it interpolate, and I'll be back when that is finished. All right. Oh yeah, guys, I forgot to mention, right here in this little corner, it tells you the estimated time. So right now it's like 49 minutes, 31 seconds, and it was at like 50 something minutes before. So it has gone down a bit. Just want to let you know, you can kind of look there to see a kind of estimate. All right, I'm really gone now. Okay, I promise. See ya. All right, guys. So when it is done, you will see this little status update right here saying done interpolating. That means your video is finished at 60 frames per second or whatever frame rate you chose. It will be in the same folder as the video that you put into the program, so you should not have a hard time finding it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you guys the original video at 12 frames per second. I'm going to show you the 60 frames per second output from the AI, and then I'm going to show you what they look like side by side. After that, I'm going to give some like director's commentary to basically point out some stuff that I'm pretty amazed by and impressed with, and that I would like to point out to you all about this final result and Flowframes overall. All right, that will basically be the conclusion to the video. Let's go to that now.
Yoshi Akira-san, お寝る時間だ。
でもトーン、タロともう少し遊びたい。
Yoshi Akira-san, お寝る時間だ。
でもトーン、タロともう少し遊びたい。
Yoshi Akira-san, お寝る時間だ。
でもトーン、タロともう少し遊びたい。
Alright guys, so you see the difference. It is honestly, in my opinion, quite drastic. As I said, when I first saw this, I was in complete shock. I was freaking out like a fanboy. You know, I was like just completely just amazed, and I'm still pretty amazed. It's just so much smoother, you know, with the 12 frames per second, you can see kind of like the jitteriness or like the pictures, you know, from one picture to the next. But with 60 frames per second, man, it is completely smooth. These figures look like they're alive. That's the best way I could put it. They look like they're really alive. It doesn't look like stop motion necessarily. It looks like little living people. Okay. And when it comes to the eyes, for example, when I did 12 frames per second manually, the eyes, I would have them just like one image blinking, one image's eyes are open. But with the flow frames, it actually animates his eyelid or their eyelids moving down and then moving back up. So you see like it looks like their eyes are literally closing and opening like a real person. It's crazy. And then also another thing with the mouths, at 12 frames per second, I just changed from like one picture of the mouth to another picture of the mouth, but the AI actually animates the transitions between the mouths. So you see his mouth like opening and closing and stuff. Is super crazy. It's really good. Now there are a few issues with this. Not what you've seen there, but in other scenes that I haven't revealed yet. Basically, there are some places where the AI seems to have a hard time creating frames. Like I think when it comes to like maybe fingers moving, it has a hard time recognizing individual fingers and stuff. What else is there? When there's like blurriness, like motion blur, it might have a hard time replicating motion blur. And sometimes if you have like, let's say for example, you have a picture on a wall and a man walking in front of the picture, right? Really walking past the picture.
the picture behind the man and the environment around him where they interact with each other or like overlap each other may get a bit distorted. And I will probably show this stuff at a future date. I just don't want to show too much because I don't want to like reveal the whole episode before I release it. But the way that I basically kind of fix that problem is that I would overlay the original video over that part of the 60 frames per second video. Okay. And that, I mean, of course, you'll notice the difference. Like the 12 frames per second won't look as silky smooth as the 60 will, but it really depends on what you choose to go with. Either you're okay with having slight imperfections with the blurriness or like slightly weird distortion and stuff like that at 60 frames per second, or you rather just put the 12 frames per second there, which you know is like perfect because you edited it yourself in the first place. And as I said, you know, I will create a video about this in the future if people want to see that, how to like get around fixing Flowframes errors, at least the way that I do. But that will probably be after I release episode 1 part 1. All right.
All right, guys. I hope that was helpful. I hope you found that to be like super awesome, just like I do. I just love Flowframes. I think it's super cool. Remember, if there are any other tutorials you want to see or anything, you know, let me know and I'll get to it if I know how to do it. If I know how to do it, I'll get to it, all that stuff. I'm going to be releasing part 1 of episode 1 of God's Last King, my stop motion series, very soon, hopefully. I have ordered some stuff on eBay. I just need to complete the intro. The reason I decided to release part 1 instead of the whole episode is because originally I thought the entire episode would just be like 10 minutes long, but I'm only about maybe halfway done and I already have 8 minutes of footage. So I'm like, dude, this is a lot longer than I thought it would be. And I don't want to keep people waiting anymore because I know people are like kind of anxious to watch it and really excited to see what the series looks like and stuff. So I've decided to release part 1 right now and I'll release part 2 at a later date when I complete that. Okay, so look out for that soon. I've ordered some stuff on eBay. The latest delivery for some of them is like, I think early to mid-April, but hopefully they deliver early because sometimes the stuff from China gets here earlier than eBay says. What else is there? There's a GoFundMe page, there's a Facebook page. I'm also a travel agent by day, animator by night. If you are planning on traveling and you want like free help, discounts, major deals, all that stuff, I'll leave the info for my agency in the description. And oh my dude, I knew I shouldn't have told y'all about Flowframes. See what kind of trouble y'all get me into, man. I gotta go, bro. Peace out, subscribe, like, all that stuff. Okay, thanks.